Our daily Bible reading for February 7th. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21. Matthew 21, we'll begin reading in verse 28 through verse 46. What do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he went to the first and said, "Son, go and work in the vineyard today." And he answered, "I will not." But afterward he changed his mind and went. And he went to the other son and said the same. And he answered, "I go, sir," but did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father? They said, "The first." Jesus said to them, "Truly, I say to you, the tax collectors and the prostitutes go into the kingdom of God before you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But the tax collectors and the prostitutes believed him. And even when you saw it, you did not afterward change your minds and believe him. Hear another parable. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard and put a fence around it, and dug a winepress in it, and built a tower and leased it to tenants, and went into another country. When the season for fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants to get his fruit. And the tenants took his servants, and beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did the same to them. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, "They will respect my son." But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and have his inheritance." And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. When therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? They said to him, "He will put those wretches to a miserable death and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the fruits in their seasons." Jesus said to them, "Have you never read in the Scriptures? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits. And the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it will crush him." When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard his parables, they perceived that he was speaking about them. And although they were seeking to arrest him, they feared the crowds because they held him to be a prophet. Some thoughts for today. When we reflect on the statement that Jesus makes in verse 43, "Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits," that must have hurt. Nobody really likes to be belittled in front of others. It is not in our nature to hear our lives used as a whipping post for others. When King David sinned with Bathsheba, the prophet Nathan came to him and told the parable of the little sheep. David's rage at such a deed done was fitting, for God himself felt that same rage at his actions. After all, David was a man after God's own heart. When he understood that it was he who was the culprit, his reaction is one for us to model in our own lives. To realize our sin and to feel true sorrow over it is what God desires from each of us. Yet those who heard Jesus' message among the elite of the Jews were quite appalled at his rendering of them. They had been quite correctly categorized as ones who rejected Jesus. The parable of the landowner and his vineyard was a brutal reminder of just how ruthless the Jewish leaders were in their stewardship of the people and that which they had been entrusted. And now they will fulfill their part by plotting the death of the Son of God. The only thing that stopped them at this point was their fear of the people, who regarded Jesus as a prophet. While we like to say that all sin is offensive to God, there are some sins that he holds as particularly egregious. Consider the harming of little children. Matthew 18:6 tells us, "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it is better for him that a heavy millstone be hung around his neck and that he be drowned in the depth of the sea." Or those who teach falsely. James 3:1 tells us, "Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that as such we will incur a stricter judgment." And how about those who obey him only to walk away? Peter writes in 2 Peter 2:21, For it would be better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than, having known it, to turn away from the holy commandment delivered to them. And the generation that would reject and kill the Son of God, Luke 11:51 tells us, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who perished between the altar and the house of God, yes, I tell you, it shall be charged against this generation. We should not think that judgment will go lightly against us should we choose to reject the Son of God either. A question of the day. Have you ever been called out publicly for an error or a mistake? And a thought to meditate on today. How hard is it to admit to others that you have erred? And those are our thoughts for today, February 7th.